In Africa, people with some form of disability go through a lot. From being looked down upon in society, to not being well looked after by their governments, and from lacking legal accessibility to all public buildings to being ignored on a government level. This is a common realm in the African continent. However, Senegal's new president Bassirou Diomaye Faye says no to these injustices towards persons with disability, and stands firmly with them. The move the PASTEF regime has just taken to favor handicapped children is simply life-changing, and worthy of emulation by other African heads of state. We will also dive into the LGBTQ issue in Senegal, which, according to reports, is one of the reasons the European Council president recently visited Senegal. We have found something shocking regarding this issue. Make sure you stay till the end. Let's dive right in. Just like other African countries and even those outside of Africa, Senegal has quite a number of citizens that are facing disability challenges, with reports suggesting that up to 5.9% of the population are living with some form of disability. This includes children as well as teenagers, adolescents, adults, and the elderly. This shows the prevalence of persons with disability in Senegal, with the majority of them still being discriminated against, marginalized, and often lacking most privileges being enjoyed by the majority of persons without disability. The most hit hard are the children. According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, only 41% of children with disabilities in Senegal attend primary school, compared to 76% of children without disabilities, highlighting a significant gap in access to formal education, with almost 60% of children with disability lacking equal access to formal education compared to their counterparts with no disability concerns. Girls with disabilities in Senegal face even greater barriers to education, with only 29% enrolled in primary school compared to 56% of boys with disabilities. Children with disabilities in rural areas of Senegal are less likely to attend school than those in urban areas, with only 34% enrollment compared to 54%, respectively, as highlighted by UNESCO. According to UNICEF, less than 5% of children with disabilities in Senegal have access to inclusive education, where they are educated alongside their non-disabled peers. The dropout rates among children with disabilities in Senegal are alarmingly high, with only 17% completing primary education compared to 72% of children without disabilities. These figures underscore the widened gap of inequality in accessing formal education for children with disability. This issue has been a heavy concern for the PASTEF regime, with Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko seeking to stand firmly with the people with disability. But what have they just done to fix the situation? What warranted them to do what they have just done? This came about in the wake of the critical lack of basic infrastructure inculcated for disabled children. Shockingly, many schools in Senegal lack basic infrastructure and resources to accommodate children with disabilities, such as wheelchair ramps or accessible toilets, contributing to their exclusion from education as discovered by the Human Rights Watch. Following this, there has been a tremendous decline in the number of teachers trained in inclusive education. The Global Partnership for Education indicated that only 12% of teachers in Senegal have received training on inclusive education and how to support students with disabilities effectively. This means fewer teachers are equipped with the education required to look after children with disabilities in schools. This issue not only ends in school, as we have seen limited access the people with disabilities are facing in terms of enrolling in vocational training programs. According to the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, less than 1% of young adults with disabilities in Senegal have access to vocational training programs, hindering their ability to acquire skills necessary for employment. This leaves them stranded in society with little to no clear career pathway, forcing them onto the streets begging for their livelihoods. With this, they are prone to all forms of societal stigma on a much larger scale. Deep-rooted societal stigma and discrimination against people with disabilities in Senegal contribute to their marginalization and exclusion from educational opportunities, as noticed by the Human Rights Watch. But all hope is not lost due to the presence of the new regime, the PASTEF regime, who wants this to be a thing of the past. The PASTEF regime has come up with something we have never seen before in Africa. This is absolutely amazing. Now this is what the PASTEF regime has done. The PASTEF regime wants Senegal's approach to dealing with people with disability to be different from that of the rest of the African countries that have recorded gross human rights abuse or negligence towards people with disability. The PASTEF regime wants to be different by calling for children with disabilities to be granted equal access to formal education and children with disabilities to be brought into classrooms together with other children with no disabilities. The PASTEF regime wants to break all circles of discrimination towards persons with a disability because having children with disability in a separate class is a form of discrimination itself. As mentioned earlier, almost 60% of children with disabilities do not have access to formal education. The PASTEF regime wants this to be a thing of the past as processes are undergoing to ensure equality and fair access to formal education for disabled children. Now on to the other story coming from Senegal regarding the LGBTQ saga. But first, this is a humble request to please support our work by liking this video and subscribing to the African Pacific YouTube channel, a Gambian-owned channel looking into the happenings of the motherland that are often ignored by mainstream media. Please show your support by liking and subscribing. Thank you so much. The President of the European Council, Charles Michel, visited Senegal on the 22nd of April to meet with the PASTEF regime, who only came into power just a month ago. The purpose of the meeting was to strengthen ties with Senegal as it was overly displayed during the meeting. Although the newly elected President Bassirou Diomaye Faye seized this opportunity by touching on the renegotiation of the long-term fishing agreement between Senegal and the European Union, which came as a result of Senegal facing up to 80% depletion of its vast fish stocks it once had. However, reports coming out of Senegal suggest that the LGBTQ issue was also one of the reasons for the visit of the European Council president. A Senegalese NGO known as Jamra Ong claimed the new president discussed LGBTQ rights with the top EU official, which led to them demanding that the government expedite the anti-LGBTQ law. This Senegalese NGO has called on the government to expedite the process of enacting an anti-LGBTQ law after the country's new president met with a top EU official. Jamra Ong Islamique made the call during a press conference last Wednesday after newly elected Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye met with European Council President Charles Michel. Mama Mokhtar Gueye of Jamra Ong Islamique claimed the meeting between the two dignitaries involved an acknowledgement of LGBTQ rights in Senegal. Gueye said Michel is an LGBTQ ally who wants to change Senegal's cultural customs that do not condone LGBTQ rights. His ardent proselytism for the expansion of LGBT ideology could not leave Jamra indifferent, said Gueye. Countries including Gabon, Central African Republic and Mauritius, amongst others, that underestimated the nuisance of these propagandists of homosexuality paid dearly for it because these global lobbyists ended up legalizing this abomination, so beware. Gueye, however, has received a lot of backlash and has been accused of not raising the same sentiments during the tenure of former President Macky Sall, who also met with Michel. Did he come as a defender of the LGBT cause or as a European official? Did he come to talk about LGBT rights or a partnership agreement between the European Union and Senegal? Asked Amadou Diaw, a Senegalese academic. Cheikh Mai Niang, a social commentator, described Jamra as a useless organization that is focused on restricting the freedom of the Senegalese people. Does this make sense? Comment down below. They are absolutely good for nothing apart from eating the taxpayers' money, said Niang. Where is the democracy we cry about every day? Seems like they are here to restrict the freedom of the Senegalese people. Not everyone is interested in religion, added Niang. We wasted too much time with these useless things. Let's talk about developing the country. People should live their lives in the manner they want. Jamra has previously made proclamations against the LGBTQ community. The organization in February, before Senegal's presidential election that took place on March 24th, accused the EU Electoral Observation Mission to Senegal of wanting to indoctrinate Senegalese people with their pro-LGBTQ narrative. Senegal does not have a law that specifically criminalizes those who identify as LGBTQ or advocates for them. Article 319 of the country's penal code criminalizes consensual same-sex sexual relations with a fine and between 1 and 5 years in prison. Some Senegalese lawmakers have sought to increase the prison sentence to 10 years for anyone convicted of engaging in homosexuality. These efforts thus far have not been successful. Will the Pastef regime legalize the anti-LGBT law? We will find out in the coming months and years. This is a polite reminder to please like this video and subscribe to the African Pacific YouTube channel. Thank you so much, much appreciated. In conclusion, LGBTQ is not African, so therefore it should not be brought to African matters or when heads of state are talking about problems in Africa. Something that is not our problem should not be our problem. It is a problem of the West, so let it stay in the West. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. This is the end of this video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.